These are very sparkly noble. Look at him. I don't understand what's wrong with his pants. An understudy. Most unfortunate tale. Naunton. Begging your pardon. Oh, it's you! It's good to see you. We had a few rough days here, but then we found this place, and then they were kind enough to hire us both. I don't remember who you are. Things have been wonderful. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done. I don't remember you. Who are you? I can't remember. It's been too long. I'm glad you're having a good time. Abelhart Scarian.
Good day, stranger.
Man is dressed in neat but functional clothes. His sun-wrinkled skin and limber musculature reflect a life spent in the wilderness. Well met. What brings you to the Charred Barrel? Is this your place? It's my retirement, he thumps the bar. It used to be a warehouse back when Brackenbury saw more ship traffic, but it fell out of use when the area became mostly residential. I inherited it from some great uncle who had never had any luck pawning it off on my cousins. Now it's the most popular spot in Brackenbury. The nobles come to unwind, and kith from other districts come to mingle. He leans closer. We get a few rough types too, but they behave in here. Besides, their coin is good as anyone else's. Who are you? I was a cartographer for the Duke for decades. He rubs his neatly stubbled cheek. Neatly stubbled. Crossed the White March half a dozen times and mapped most of the ruins of Thayan Bog. He grins, flashing a gold tooth. Good career, but one suited to younger men. When I came back to Defiance Bay for good, Cliver and a few other friends and the knights helped me get the night rights to refurbish this place. There's strong ale, quality entertainment, and a fresh sea breeze. He raises a mug. What more could a man want? Okay. Noble. Oh, look. Some stories to read. Souls. See a woman clad in expensive finery. Her eyes flash as she interrogates a trembling wreck on the ground. Reaching into his pocket, her hand curls around in a dress, and she smiles grimly. Moments later, she's in a bedraggled alleyway, her pace quickening, her braids trail around a corner, and she's upon them, or perhaps they are upon her. The action does not last, as she easily dispenses of man after man. Searching their faces, clothes, shouts for something she fails to find. Frustrated, she moves on, but not quickly enough as an Orlan attacks her from behind, the seal upon his finger glittering with malice. The woman's eyes alight upon it as she twists to evade his blow, and her eyes burn bright. Perhaps this was not a wasted trip after all. Ha! Victor and his longer story. We see a large group of people gathered in the common area of a large inn. This man is standing in the midst of the people engaged in conversation with someone. He's smiling and talking gregariously, moving from person to person with ease. He is able to extract himself from one conversation and insert himself into another without a break in his stride. He kisses the hand of a well-dressed woman, dipping her and then twirling her back into the arms of her escort. Alrighty then. He moves on to another group, slapping someone on the back while laughing at a joke. And then he's off again, sliding between people, hugging someone, shaking hands, and he never stops. Okay then. Finally, he seems to have hit his limit and excuses himself from the gathering, much to the dismay of everyone there. He smiles and waves as he leaves, making a little bow with a flourish in the hand as he closes the door. Once he is away from the inn and around a corner, he pulls several objects from a concealed pocket in his jacket and looks in each in one turn: a necklace, a brooch, a couple of coin pouches, and a small jewel. Smiling, he pours the money into his palm and quickly counts it, still aimlessly wandering the streets. He passes a beggar who holds out a bowl to him, pleading for pittance. The man stops, smiles at the beggar, drops all the coins into his bowl, then walks off, whistling happily. Cook. The patrons here are particular. Particularly what? There is something going on down here. Bandit. 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 Bandit leader. Just having a little chat with my associates. Now there's some sort of quest involved with that. Great. They're just gonna be chatting down there for a while. Oh, cool. I didn't actually think about that. Finished in an hour. Oh my god, your hat! Or maybe it's not a hat, maybe it's his head. He's like a goat man. You see a group of children shouting, twisted laughter erupting from two small mouths. An eyeless boy, face grown over with a strange black tusks, cowers against a log. His small shoulders shake as he whispers to himself, trying to block out the relentless trail of insults. Freak monster, death head. The boy stays long after the other children leave. You see the same eyeless boy, now a man, many years later. Another group crowds him, but this time it's an audience. He tells a long joke about a ghost in a privy, and by the time he reaches the punchline, the crowd is yelling, starting to sound very much like the first. He's a goat man. Kill asses. The horror! You see a pair of chain gloves sitting on a table between two men. The gloves are inlaid with gold runes and glow with a faint blue aura. The man stands on one side of the table, and across from is another man dressed in arcane robes. The man retrieves a small pouch and hands it to the wizard, telling him to count it to ensure his entire payment is there. The wizard smiles, giving the man a half bow, and then empties the pouch into his hand. You wanted these gloves protected from the thieves and other unsavory characters, he says, dropping the coins piece by piece back into a bag. Put them on and they'll never leave you. The man slowly slips his hand into the gloves, a look of satisfaction on his face. His smile falters a little once they're on his hands. The gloves flash briefly and then start making a light metallic tinkling noise. The look of satisfaction quickly becomes one of concern, and he grabs at the gloves, trying to pull them from his hands. His fingers tug at the openings, but they have shrunk, trapping his hands inside. The metal begins to work its way into his skin, and small drops of blood appearing on the surface of the gloves. The man drops to his knees, fighting with them and crying in pain. The gloves constrict until they have completely shrunk around the man's hand, becoming one with the flesh. The man looks in horror at his hands and then up at the wizard, who's finished counting his money and standing at the door. You certainly won't be losing them now, he says, stepping through his door, slamming it behind him, leaving the man on the floor staring at his hands.
This won't stop me from...
There! Done!
XP. You see a woman sway, her voice floating gloriously above the chord. Lilting and sweet, it twists around them and they smile, enraptured as she palms the hearts one by one. She begins to dance, but something in her step is offbeat. She pauses, confused, to snatch up some foreign sound in the air, competing, resisting. It takes her a moment to spot him, a small man with a single brow, chanting under his breath, disrupting her song with his staccato incantation. She intensifies the dance, the swing of her hips wider, her feet a flicker above the square tile ground, the underlying chant in her own song more persuasive. His lips twist intently, vibrating with the effort of countering her charm, and then a note crystal clear, bright and tinkling. He begins to smile dazedly as her song continues, and he forgets all about resisting. She's won the day and the court. The fuck was that? Pirates! Merwith watches you through kohl-rimmed eyes. She puts her hand on the hilt of her blade, jangling the jewels that hang from her wrist. We don't know each other, stranger. Best keep it that way. What brings you to the charred barrel? She raises an eyebrow. What's it look like? Good wine and a little peace and quiet. She flips a copper with her thumb. And Skirian doesn't ask too many questions. You don't seem like a Brackenbury local. I'm a sailor, she gives you a half smile, and a liberator of certain goods. Merwith casually fingers a large earring. Ugh. It is... The nice thing about the snobs here is that they're usually too polite to ask more. Oh, there's nothing in this room. for? Oh. Gods keep you. Alright, well, that was riveting. Yeah, these people have stories too. Okay. You see a dark room, noise filters in through a nearby doorway. The sounds of battles, scuffling metal on metal, cries of pain rise and fall as a fight rages on outside. There's a bellow of rage, and a lizard runs into the room, holding a book tightly against his chest. It looks around frantically, searching for something. It hurries to the far side of the room and opens a box sitting on the makeshift table, places the book in the box and closes it, then bends over to push the box under the table. A small stone hits the back of the lizard's head, knocking it forward a little, the stone bouncing to the ground, rattling a little as it comes to rest on the floor next to the lizard's foot. It freezes in place, hands still on the box, eyes wide as the clattering of the stone quiets. Silence takes control of the room again. The battle outside is stopped. It spins around to find this woman standing in the doorway, leaning on a savage-looking two-handed sword. "That book contains the answers I need," she snarls at it, moving forward. It hisses, rushing to meet her. Seconds later, she's retrieving the stone from the floor, having separated its head from its neck with practiced flick of her sword. She smiles, kisses the stone, and then places it in a pouch on her belt, patting it fondly. Leaning over, she pulls the box out from under the table and opens it, elated with her find. And I'm pretty sure I just inserted a word there. Isabel also has a long story. You see a lush forest, quiet and dark in the early morning light. Sorry. This woman walks through the trees, a captivated look on her face. She doesn't appear to have a particular destination in mind as she wanders slowly between the enormous trunks, looking up through the branches and occasionally making a low chirping sound. When a responding chirp echoes through the quiet morning, she turns her head in that direction, obviously not concerned with losing her way. A loud metallic snap followed by a quick yelp cuts through the air as she looks to it, focusing in the direction from which the sound came. She moves toward it on the verge of running. She seems to realize suddenly that caution is important, freezes looking down, her foot hovering over the pressure plate on a well-hidden bear trap. She leans back and gingerly places her foot back on the ground next to the trap. She looks around, anger darkening her features. Grabbing a nearby branch, she presses down on the plate and disables the trap. When it snaps shut, she hears another yelp, this time much closer. Scanning the ground for more traps, she carefully makes her way toward the trapped animal. Rounding one of the trees, she spies him, a large wolf, bony with malnourishment, right hind leg tight in the rusty metal teeth. He looks at her in a low growl and starts in the back of his throat. His hackles rise and she pauses briefly to let him catch her scent. She lowers herself closer to the ground and holds her hands out, palms down, in front of her. "Aren't you a beautiful boy?" She inches toward the wolf. Blah, blah, blah. Can't speak anymore. Ooh. I haven't done much crafting lately. I gotta sell all my shit. I can upgrade my armor too. Oh my god, more people. I'm gonna need like more water. You see this man kneeling naked before a dais in the center of a large round room. Across the room opposite from where he kneels stands a large throne. The throne's back and two of its legs are broken, rendering it unusable and causing it to tilt precariously on its stand. The room is ringed with figures clad in black robes, each chanting quietly, resulting in a low drone that pervades the room. On the dais across the brazier is another robed figure holding a leather-bound book with charred marks on it. He's speaking to the naked man about fealty, dedication, and law. Okay. When he finishes, he bids the other to raise, and he holds the book out to him over the burning coals of the brazier. The naked man nods, and the robed man drops the book into the fire. The naked man drops to one knee, briefly pressing his forehead to the side of the brazier, then stands and thrusts both of his hands into the coals at the bottom of the brazier. He retrieves the book, slowly presenting it to the robed figure before him. The man rubs his thumb on the ash that is collected on the cover of the book and uses it to draw a mark on the naked man's forehead over the burned flesh. The naked man bows his head and whispers, Was that right, Da? The robed man nods patiently. The naked man looks to the broken throne with childlike eyes. Did you see that, Mum? What the fuck? He's got a weird looking hat. Rocco Francis white brows. You see a burly man inspecting a dilapidated inn, the Almoa salesman almost dwarfing him as they walk through the once proud establishment. The walls are rife with stains, and only Whale knows what else smeared on every available surface. Not one thing stands unbroken, and moth-eaten blankets, rotting food, and trash give evidence to a succession of squatters. The man frowns, scrutinizing the space. The Almoa gives him a final offer, flashing 2 white teeth with each syllable, oversized and threatening. With a sigh and a jingle as he hands over the coin pouch, the man acquires the dump of an inn and begins to plan. Dump of an inn. Noble. Okay. Why? I don't even know who they are. What a dick. Oh, my thing finished. Oh, it finished in 2 minutes. Okay, well, I'll wait 2 minutes. Excuse me. Here, I'll read this lady's story and figure out what to do there. You see a woman dark-skinned, taut with worry. Moving aft, she scales the rigging and shouts frantically at the crew. The ship isn't turning fast enough. She looks at the captain, gaping soundlessly at the approaching vessel. Her hands blister from the descent as she jumps from rope to rope, screaming at him to take action, take charge. Do something! Just do it! What is she paying him for if not to defend her ship from pirates? With a squeal as ladders are thrown across, the ship is boarded. She sprints below decks. Taking the steps 3 at a time until she reaches the cargo hold. Scrambling amongst the containers, she searches until she finds it, a blunderbuss fully loaded. Someone grabs her from behind. She throws up a knee, rolls around, and shoots. How did they grab her from behind? And what does that mean by she throws up a knee? And she okay. The force sends her spine first into the wall, but her assailant falls to the ground with half a head and without an arm. Okay. Dragging herself up the stairs, she reloads and engages the enemy force with her crew. She cocks an eyebrow as the pirates drop left and right. Clearly this was more than they bargained for when they chose her ship.
Yeah.
A knee. I don't understand. I don't understand that motion. I'm sorry. Oh look, it's another goat man. You see a rocky clearing overgrown with weeds. A crumbling wall cuts through the one side and the trees reach toward each other overhead, blocking much of the light that would otherwise illuminate the body lying near the wall. The body belongs to an elf face down in the dirt. His clothes are torn and ragged. Large bruises seem to cover him. There are cuts, abrasions, and lacerations everywhere. His skin is exposed to the air. The elf twitches, a muffled cry escaping his lips, blowing dust around his head. He begins to moan, his hands scrabbling against the ground, fending off something you are unable to see. His breath comes faster and faster until he is almost hyperventilating. With one final sound, a swallowed scream, his eyes fly open. In an instant, he's on his feet, crouching, eyes wildly looking around. His breathing doesn't slow, and every exhalation is a groan. With one last look over his shoulder, the elf runs into the embrace of the crumbling wall's shadow, all but disappearing into the gloom. Looking down at his present condition, he murmurs, I don't see how someone who so clearly screws his own livestock can be so sensitive about it. What? That guy get... I'm not gonna ask questions. I don't want to know. Domenial Doorman.
Good day, stranger.
I don't recognize you. What business do you have with host Domenial? Wow, that escalated quickly. Tell me about House Domenial. It's an old and respected family. Much of Divine's base prosperity is due to Domenial's business activities. Now, do you have any further business here? I will see you out. Well, fuck you too. Just basically I got ejected from that dude's house. Okay. Ooh, perception bonus. That would be handy. Hold on a second. I'm gonna save it. I just want to see what happens when I do a manual resolve. Okay. Well, it takes about 22 hours to get there, right? So I can finish exploring this little area. Too many variables.
Well met, friend.
A woman stands in the shade of the garden, muttering to herself. She's fixated on the pages of a large and well-worn tome, seemingly oblivious to the blooming flowers and the cool, fragrant breeze. She only looks up at you when her shadow crosses her page. Do you mind? I'm rather busy. What are you so busy with? She snaps her book shut. I'm studying soul attachment. We all know that souls move into birth at people at birth and out of them at death, but we still have a lot of questions about what makes them stick, so to speak. What do you mean about making them stick? She brushes a stray lock from her forehead. Souls power bodies and give them their give their tissues life, but only when they're firmly attached. It's separation that leads to a whole spate of soul-related ailments, including the Hollowborn. But if we understand how to reattach souls, we could end Widewind's legacy. Maybe even conquer death. She scratches behind her ear. That's a theory, anyway. Unfortunately, I don't have all the research I need to put it into practice. What exactly do you need? There's a manuscript called The Theorems of Pangram. It contains research from Pangram's experiments on detached souls. The Hall of Revealed Mysteries is rumored to have a copy in the Elder Archives. Pangram's work is considered to be one of the more daring animancy texts, not something generally circulated among novices, nor easy to get a hold of. I wonder if we might have a peek at it. The theorems would advance my research by leaps and bounds, but Grimda, the High Archivist, worships whale, and which means she has some paradoxical views on sharing and restricting knowledge. And since she's not exactly a proponent of animancy, she tends to restrict the kinds of information that would be useful for me. Well, maybe she could be persuaded. You're welcome to try, but you wouldn't be the first, she says anyway. Anyway, I should probably get back to my work. Tell me about yourself. I'm an animancer from the sanitarium. Currently, I'm researching matters related to Widewind's legacy. Anything else? She looks eager to return to her studies. What's Widewind's legacy? Widewind's legacy refers to the rise in Hollowborn children in the Deerwood in recent years. Some have also connected it to the so-called biowax that blow through the ear Glenfath. There's hardly any reliable data on those, though, so I really can't comment. I don't really care much for the term Widewind's legacy. It reeks of superstition, but it's too prevalent to change at this point. Personally, I'd like to see people take a more methodical approach to these matters, rather than throwing up their hands and blaming the gods. I don't think Deerwoodians would see too much fun in that. I have some questions about the theorems of Pangram. Such as... Tell me about the theorems of Pangram. Pangram was an animancer working in Deerwood. He had some interesting theories about the essence and some rather innovative techniques for studying it. He was able to reattach souls to bodies after death, though he wasn't able to prevent the patients from degenerating. He was controversial, to say the least, but many are starting to realize that he was merely ahead of his time. What do you mean by degenerating? Maiden twists her hands together. Well, there seems to be a tiny problem with reattaching souls after death. The bodies will reanimate and maybe even retain memories and personality, but they develop a hunger for flesh, living soul-infused flesh. Without it, they start to devolve, decaying mentally and physically. If the process goes too far, which it eventually does, they become mindless corpses attacking anything that moves. We haven't figured out a way to avoid that. And you wonder why Grimda won't share this research with you. That sounds like necromancy. Nonsense! Necromancy is magic. This is science! Why doesn't Grimda lend you the books you need? The Hall of Revealed Mysteries is rather protective of its books, especially the rare ones, and Grimda in particular. She hates animancy, thinks it's dangerous. I don't see how you can run the greatest library in the Deerwood and be so adverse to the spread of knowledge and research. I've never understood those religious types. Allah scowls at the Animancer. Some knowledge is best kept under lock and key. I can't really remember the voice I did for him. I'd like to know about the Hall of Revealed Mysteries. You'll find it in the Copper Lane district. It's dedicated to the god of secrets and revelations. Most importantly, it houses the largest and most expansive library in Deerwood. Well, that settles it. We simply must go see it, right? We've been there already! God! What are the Elder Archives? The Elder Archives hold the rarest, most arcane, and most powerful texts in the Deerwood. Think of it as an inner sanctum of the Hall of Revealed Mysteries. Needless to say, you need Grimda's permission to enter. That's all I wanted to ask. I'll leave you alone now.
Yeah.
Sanitarium. Sanitarium! Let's go to the sanitarium. I'm supposed to get a book from here anyways. Alrighty. Let us investigate the sanitarium. This doesn't look like Mount Massive. I think I already have a copy of this. Fabia, my love, my life. Fie to the gods for such treachery. Burnett dies. Leia dies. Everybody dies. Poetry. I move. There is no compulsion. It is not a need. But something pulls. I cannot deny its draw. Dramatic reading. All is white. My journey continues. Sense a strange divide in the woman's soul, an unnatural boundary between two opposed wills. You see a woman pausing by a roadside to hand something to a driver of a stopped wagon. Those herbs should help. For this party's sickness, she tells them he can find more along the road, easy to spot with their serrated leaves, but avoid the ones with the green berries. It's a different species, toxic. He thanks her and offers a coin, but she waves him off, explaining that she's merely doing what her order asks her. Of her. She nods and she heads off down the road as he begins to hungrily consume the herb. You see a woman searching alongside the road now, the wagon just up the path, and you realize you've skipped backward in her memory. She sets eyes on a plant with serrated leaves and green berries. She picks several handfuls, tearing the berries off one by one and tossing them to the ground. She nudges them off the path into the brush quickly with her boot without looking down, as if to hide them from her own sight before striding back toward the wagon, hands outstretched. Okay. A well-maintained statue of middle-aged man presides over the room, looking down and blinking over the bustle of harried academics pestered by the hopeful desperate. Strong warmth emanates from that you could sense from across the room. There's a human soul stored beneath the stonework. You feel its attention turned toward you. It has been some time since a watcher graced these halls. His voice echoes deeply, rumbling the floor beneath you. I am envious of your natural insights, traveler. I can only imagine how it might have helped my work in life. Now what is it that brought you to my sanitarium? Tell me about the sanitarium. A history lesson? This is a rare pleasure. Most come in here only concerned with cheating death in one way or another. We're an old institution as Deerwood goes. This is our 94th year. As with many cities, the growth of Defiance Bay brought with it a host of problems. One of the worst was that those born with, shall we say, ill-favored souls came to populate the streets in droves, thus the sanitarium. Brackenbury was a natural fit. It was growing, but there was also a lot of money here back then. This place owes its survival to the curiosities of the wealthy more than anything, I think. Our founding came at a time of great suspicion and animancy, much like today. So much progress has been lost to the mishaps of a few careless practitioners. This is a long history lesson. But in time it was forgotten, as all things are. I keep seeing lights go on outside, and it keeps distracting me. I'm afraid someone will shit in our car again. Since then, we have been at the forefront of animancy's resurgence. We have played host to many gifted researchers and pushed the boundaries of our knowledge in ways never thought possible. Some of the first safe transferences were done here as we have pioneered work in soul purification, lineage analysis, preservation. It's really quite a list, if you pardon my pride. Today I can't say it's exactly the same. There's been some push to shut it down. It comes from Deerwood's more excitable denizens, whose minds are more passionate than thoughtful, I'm afraid. People see this legacy, and they see it involve something they don't understand. So it's natural for them to suspect people whose understanding exceeds theirs. It looks to them like we're hiding something. We have representatives in this palace at this very moment defending the entire science of animancy at a hearing before the Duke. Absurd as it sounds, if it does not go well, it could be the end of animancy in Deerwood. I fear Avnar may be swayed by all this unrest, irrational as it though it may be. We shall see! Looking for an animancer named Mordred. Mordred, of course. You will find him downstairs in the first room on the right. I'm curious as to how you came to be in your present state. In the statue, you mean? Well, I was old, and it seemed wrong to me, a lifetime spent in the pursuit of discovery, only to lose it all in the death. Somewhere, someday, I would wake up in a new body, none the wiser, and pursue a different course entirely. All that experience wasted. If we are ever to unearth the principles behind our existence, it will be in spite of our condition. Of that I am sure. I am regretting doing this voice. To live on as part of something that I helped build seemed to me a better legacy than what nature had done in store. I added an extra word for fun. The transfer itself was quite simple as our techniques go, and for that I am grateful. Playing with souls is far easier to accept when they're not your own. I do miss being able to take an active role in the scholarly efforts here. Now and again one of our animancers will humor me or consult me over some problem, but they are a jealous breed and too often afraid to collaborate. If you're considering it yourself, I can tell you it isn't for the easily bored. Okay. Oh. Farmer become God. Farmer turned God. Eh. There's only like one book in every bookshelf. Wodica. I'm gonna need. Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm gonna need a glass of water first and use the washroom.